So I wanted to discuss Only Yesterday, which is a Studio Ghibli film that's on HBO Max now, which I had never heard of and I'd never seen before, even though I love Studio Ghibli. So I'm kind of thinking maybe a lot of Studio Ghibli fans out there haven't actually watched it before. So in case you haven't, totally recommend you do, and here's a little bit more about it. So I really loved it, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful, as are all Studio Ghibli films. This one's a lot more I would say quiet and introspective. It's not kind of the big bombastic stuff you get to see in like Howl's Moving Castle, and all of those other kind of beautiful, fantastical Studio Ghibli films. This is more about kind of everyday life and making decisions that impact your day-to-day life. Specifically about kind of following your dreams, even if it doesn't necessarily fit society's standards of what your dream should be. I was really shocked to find that I related with Taiko, the main character, so much. And she was such a happy character, but with a lot of hidden regret, I would say, and a lot of things that she hasn't quite dealt with necessarily. Um, she was a creative kid who didn't do so well in math. And made a lot of excuses for herself, like I did. She struggled with expressing and understanding her emotions as well, because she wasn't really raised in a family that discussed that kind of thing. And I totally relate to that. As an adult, she's got a 9 to 5 job that's totally fine in a great company. It pays the bills. She does everything that she's expected to do in society, except getting married. That's the one thing she's managed to not do. But she ends up going to the country, and loving to work there for her vacations. So she ends up doing that every year instead of taking like a holiday like her friends would. She just goes and works on farms. Which is, I think, just such a fun thing to do in general, and I might take take note of that and do that in the future. But what she ends up discovering is that she really loves the country, and she's got a passion for working with her hands and learning about doing things the old way, essentially. Um, and it's set in Japan, so it's gorgeous, and it's the Japanese countryside. So again, absolutely beautiful. And because Studio Ghibli, the soundtrack's on point. Looks like a painting. It takes its time, and it's really beautiful. And you just become just enamored with her story because she's constantly narrating in her head. She's just so introspective. So it's really interesting to discover, like just to be on the journey while she discovers more and more about herself. And yeah, it's just incredible. And she manages to think while she's in the country about her fifth grade self, essentially. And she's running through these really vivid memories about her time in fifth grade, which happened to be a pivotal moment in her life. There were lots of little things that happened to her then that really made her change as a person. And what I really love about that is I remember a lot of my childhood pretty vividly, or it feels like a lot. It's probably just a couple memories, but I feel like it's very vivid. Like it happened only yesterday, and she does say that in the film. Actually, it goes back to the title, where she references a memory, and she's like, "It felt like only yesterday." So she does remember these things really well. And you can see where she's able to take moments from her past and talk about it with people she feels comfortable with, so that she can understand why she does certain things nowadays. And it's so interesting. The people she speaks with her past and talk about, they're able to offer a new perspective on how she dealt with certain situations as a child. She learns new things about herself because she shares those intimate moments, right, where she didn't really talk about them with anybody else. And what's interesting is that she shares these moments almost flippantly, like they didn't mean that much to her, like they weren't important. But she remembers them so vividly. It's clear that they mattered, and they were part of her life and part of the path that she had taken throughout her life. So it's really, she's getting that perspective to see herself more clearly, which doesn't seem like she's ever had therapy or anything like that. And it's set in the 90s where I imagine therapy was not quite as normalized in Japan or really anywhere back in the 90s as much. So she might never have spoken about those things to anybody else, really. So it kind of feels like you're getting like the first glimpse that she's also getting the first glimpse of herself, which is really, really interesting. Um, and she starts to understand situations from her past way better because she's getting those new perspectives from the people she's telling these stories to. And even just talking about it, not even getting feedback on it, but just talking about it is having her like understand herself a little bit better, and maybe why she made a certain reaction or made a certain decision in her life. Um, so it's really really interesting. There was a kid that she sat next to in school, who happened to be a poor kid who treated her awfully. He was mean and he acted tough and he would spit in her direction. And she said she hated him and she couldn't bring herself to gossip about him though the way that the other kids did because she felt it was wrong, right? So there was something in her that understood that maybe his situation caused him to act out in this way, or it wasn't him as a person. There was something else going on. So gossiping about it would be not okay. So she had something in her telling her that, but she wasn't able to put that into words clearly. That goes back into not being able to understand or express those emotions in a clear way, right? So there was something innate where she knew it was not okay, right? And Toshio, the friend that she was discussing this with, he asked her how he acted, how that boy acted with other people. And she'd not really thought about it, and she was like, oh, well, he was fine with everybody else, but just with me. And so he's like, um, maybe he liked you, and maybe he felt like he had to be tough with you because the rejection of somebody he really liked would hurt way more because he felt like he maybe wasn't good enough. Maybe he did feel too poor or too dirty or just not worthy of you. And so he treated you poorly so that there wouldn't be a connection and he wouldn't feel let down if you did actually not like him. So he just treated you kind of just terribly. And she was shocked by that revelation. It would never have crossed her mind that could have been the reason why he would act in that way. And she gained some empathy for that kid, and starts to understand, okay, my initial reaction to things might not be exactly the same thing as what's really happening in their mind. You never really know unless you talk to that person. And she just would never have had that ability to to understand that without sharing those things. And she says a few times in the films that she never really got over a certain situation. She'll like tell a story and then be like, oh, I guess I never really dealt with that, or stuff like along those lines, right? And I think that's hilarious because that happens so often, right? We're walking through life, right? Just doing whatever, and not really paying attention to our actions and the way that we react to things. So for her to go back over what happened in her past and get these new perspectives, it's really giving her that understanding of like, oh, okay, so my emotions maybe back then were this. My initial reaction was caused by something happening to me, and now I can act better in the future. She doesn't say it quite that clearly, but you can tell that she's making changes and she's understanding herself and others a little bit more clearly. And she just had so many experiences where she had a boy like her, and she just couldn't connect with them. It was too terrifying, too embarrassing. She just walk away, couldn't deal with it, and it was just she just couldn't understand those intense emotions. And I had similar experiences with potential friends and or crushes or whatever, and I couldn't deal with whatever I was feeling inside enough to be able to express that in like a clean and healthy way or clear and healthy way. So I just shoved those emotions down and and never tried to understand how I felt, right? So I was really rude to a lot of people that I that I was either intimidated by or who I liked. But then I was super nice to the people who I felt comfortable with. Um, and I had a lot of really great friends, but only ones that had initiated the friendship. I'd never initiated a friendship. Um, and I let people come to me, and if they were vulnerable with me, I felt I could be vulnerable with them. And sometimes I wasn't even vulnerable with them, and I just let them kind of talk to me, and I would never really offer anything back. Um, and that creates hollow friendships, right? Um, so with people who had similar issues, understanding their emotions like I did, I just couldn't connect at all because neither one of us could put our guards down, right? And you can only make true connections when you take down those walls and really love each other's imperfections, and appreciate the shared like anomalies of your lives, right? Um, it's just really fascinating to watch it unfold. And I would say that Tycho struggles with the creative mind, right? Maybe even ADHD or ADD as well, but that kind of goes along with the creative mind. Where it doesn't look like she's very intelligent when it comes to math and science, but she excels at creative writing and acting. She does incredibly at a school play where she only has one line and managed to steal the show because she figured out how to move her body to express emotions, since her teacher wouldn't allow her to change her line to be more emphatic. And it's just beautiful to watch. And because of her performance, she gets scouted by a local university to take part in a play. So you see where she shines in these creative outlets. And one way or another, she gets pushed down away from those creative things. And because they don't fit society's standards of what she should be doing. It's a little frustrating watching her shoo off people's protestations about her not being able to follow her dreams of becoming kind of like an actress. She shoves it off so nonchalantly. She's like, I never would have become an actress anyway. But everyone else could see that she had real potential to do what she loved. She could have even just gotten a couple of years of doing small plays that brought her joy. Like she might never have been a star, but she could have had fun with it. And it could have been a fun outlet for her. But she just never does it again. She never acts again. And you can see in the faces of the people listening to her that they understand that she hasn't processed that regret and that inner sadness about having to give up on something new that really had excited her. I'm trying to take a page from that and not push down excitement that I have for different things as well. So I'm trying to kind of go for things that are a little bit kind of out of the norm, that I might be a little embarrassed to start out and to kind of fail at, just to discover if I like it. So I don't know, maybe from this you could go watch the movie, obviously it's very interesting, but maybe try to talk about some of your old experiences, and even if you're not talking to anybody else, if you're just like writing it down or kind of doing what I did, which was just explode my thoughts into a video, and kind of just process something that has happened in your past, to learn from it. I think it would be really helpful to just be reflective on those things, and to gather that kind of introspective mind, right? To change the way that you view the world, and maybe change how you react to those past experiences, and maybe make the way that you react to new situations a little bit better. And if you have access to therapy, I would say go for it, because it does help a lot of people, and you don't need to have depression or anxiety to go see a therapist. Everybody would be much better off if they could talk to somebody who just can clearly listen to things that have happened in your past and give you a new perspective on things. Obviously, if you have depression or anxieties or things like that, therapy is a really good option, so go for that. But even if you just want somebody to talk to, I think it's a really good idea. And it's a great way to grow. Even just, self-help books. But But that's everything. So yeah, have a great day. Thanks.